Hey, welcome back to the War Journal podcast. Today I want to talk about a very important topic, I believe is very important, especially in today's society, which is often overlooked, education. Education has a huge impact and influence on a person's success in their future. And what I learned throughout the course of my life made me realize how education is so important. And I want to share a passage that I wrote in the book and then talk a little about my experience and hopefully share my insights so everyone can share the same opinion or views or maybe learn about education and how valuable it really is. Growing up, my father told me that I was stupid, wouldn't amount to anything, and would wind up working on the back of a garbage truck. His verbal attacks fostered doubt and insecurity about my intellect. So I didn't apply myself in high school and was overshadowed by my sister, who was a straight A student. The Marines afforded me opportunities to excel, made me realize the value of education, and created a desire to learn. I graduated summa cum laude from undergrad and was recognized by professors and peers as one of the brightest students in my graduate program. My first thirst for knowledge, which continues today, enabled me to be successful in life and afforded me opportunities that I never imagined. It is one of the greatest achievements in my life and something that I hope everyone embraces. Whether through formal education, a trade school, or independent learning, the value of learning is extraordinary. It can never be taken away from you. One of the things that I've tried to instill into my children is the value of education and learning. I was fortunate enough to watch during the pandemic some of the virtual learning that was being conducted and saw how a different side of the educational system, especially for public schools. And learning for me back in the 80s was totally different than what I experienced and what I saw when my children were learning in school. And it casted doubt on my faith in the education system, especially in public schools. And the reason why is because it wasn't teaching, and my children weren't learning anything. I'll give you a specific example. I was in the office and I was watching my son and listening to my son, and the teacher came on and said, "We're going to watch a 10-minute video." And then when the video was over, I was under the impression the teacher would ask questions like, who was the main character? What was the plot? What was the lesson learned? What was the underlying themes? What was the major takeaway? And the questions they asked were, well, how do you feel? How do you feel about the video? And it really wasn't anything that I thought you're learning. It's really talking about your feelings. And that, for me, was a big wake-up call. So I got kind of more involved with my children's education. And the thing that I always try to instill in them, and I still do, is always ask why or question things. Never take for granted or believe what someone is telling you. And I attribute this to everything that I do in my life. No matter whether it's a prominent businessman, maybe a political politician or an influencer, you always have to understand, number one, what that person's education is, like Dr. Fauci or whomever. And then what is their agenda? What is their objective? Because information can be distorted, it can be manipulated, it can be turned, especially data. Data will only get you to the wrong answer faster. And an over-reliance on information or data that is inaccurate, it really distorts perceptions in reality. So the first thing I've always done is look at where the source of the information is coming from, a lot from my intelligence background, and then understand why it's put out. How is it shaped? What is it intended to do? How is it intended to influence people? And when you understand that, you see things through a different lens, and it helps you understand things in a way that most people just take for granted. So going back to my childhood, and the thing that I would love to instill into parents is supporting your children and their in their educational journey, to reinforce, positively reinforce, to help them, to be a part of it. I remember when my children were growing up that I would read them books, Dr. Seuss. I would encourage them to be active in reading, which my youngest daughter, Tabitha, was an avid reader. You can see later on in life how that helped her in school, in learning. But it's so critical in the early years to develop a good foundation of learning and education. I didn't have that. And it took me years to understand that I was smart, that I was intelligent, that I wasn't stupid. And it was really in my master's program when I finally realized, even though I did well in undergrad, but I was out partying, I was dating a Redskins cheerleader, I was traveling and having fun, and I really didn't, apply myself as much as I should have. And the class valedictorian came up to me, and I'll never forget this. Matt, we were friends, and he says, "Hey Jim, I'm really pissed." And I was like, "Why? What's going on, Matt?" He goes, "I don't get it. I'm in study sessions, I'm working hard, I'm doing all the assignments, I study every night, and I looked at our grade point average, and you're just a tenth of a point behind me." And it was really at that time and through that discussion I learned that, I was intelligent, I was smart, but years of being told that I wasn't, it influenced me, negatively influenced me. It prevented me from achieving as much as I hoped to or wanted to. But then I realized that I have certain knowledge and skills and understanding that most people don't. I see things in a different way, which is good. And that really helped me understand my children better. Each of my children has their own special gifts, and understanding what they are and understanding how they can be used to be successful in their lives is important, it's critical. And I see that in people too. And I see that I can't perform or do things as well as other people, like Excel databases. They just don't resonate with me. I don't see them in the way other people can see them. And understanding as a leader what attributes and what capabilities each person has, just like as a parent, understanding what attributes your children have, and then being able to accentuate them, being able to apply them into different areas. But it's just not formal education. It deals with trades. I remember during my summer vacations in college that I would work as a construction worker, framing houses. Having the ability to understand and read blueprints. Worked with a plumber for a couple months, and understanding how to do different things, weld, and learning trades, I think is one of the most important things also. So what I'm trying to say is that education doesn't have to be just in school and learning. Education comes every day for me. The one thing that I would say is learning and my faith and growing in that and reading the Bible has been very important to me. And I'm honestly disadvantaged. I don't have a good foundation in faith, and I haven't read the Bible, and I can't recite scripture, but I do have an intuitive knowledge, and I believe that is the thing that helps me the most in my life. So the bottom line, and the thing that I want to get across in this podcast, is that education is so important, and continue learning. I'm 56 years old, and I learn every day. I learn about relationships. I learn about business. I learn about living life, managing relationships, friendships. And I'll continue learning and always have a quest for knowledge and understanding. But at the same time, I'm always going to ask why. Because that, for me, has yielded some of the best results and positive results in my life. Not just taking things for granted, always questioning things, always trying to have a deeper understanding or meaning. And I hope that people will listen to this and take that on in their own lives and try to improve themselves, no matter in what facet or capacity, whether it's managing your marriage or your friendships or your children or your coworkers. I think every day try to read something, whether it's New York Wall Street Journal article or whether it's a newspaper or something. Don't rely on what's put out on social media. I'm a victim of it myself, where I'll sit and start scrolling through TikTok and just watching videos, and that's really not learning or absorbing anything. And then I realize what I'm doing, and I say, okay, well, let me go do this or do that. Be productive. And it doesn't have to be just reading. It can be listening to a podcast from someone who is renowned in their field. Learn something different. Increase your scope and your aperture, and just try to embrace learning. I think it's one of the most important, critical things that we do in our lives, and it's sometimes overlooked or neglected. So anyway, I hope this podcast kind of gave you a new perspective on education. I hope that you embrace it and apply it to your lives daily, and you spread this message with other friends and family, because everybody can use a little education. Thanks again for tuning in to the War Journal podcast. I have one more episode in the Critical Life Lessons, and then I start with the manuscript, and I can't wait to kick that off. Thank you very much, and please subscribe and share and like and make comments. I love responding to your comments. Thank you.